This is my final project report. To start with the goals and purpose, the primary audience of my website are my high school students. I began this website with the intention of producing an Algebra 1 website. I ultimately decided to make an overall math department website incorporating the Algebra 1 portion within it. Therefore, it would be any of the high school math students at my school, but primarily my students. There are secondary audiences, and particularly that would be mostly parents and guardians of the students who would like to help them with their homework or help them study. Other teachers may also be a secondary audience, as it could be something that was collaborative where we could input useful information to help the students moving forward. Okay, so let's go through the implementation. So providing links to pages of your site, and I'm going to clearly indicate the home page and the function of the JavaScript component. So this is the home page of my website. I teach at Butler Traditional High School, which is why it is titled Butler Traditional Math. And on this home page, you can click on these buttons down here. I have implemented the Algebra 1 pages and the resource pages. The rest of the links are not active. Now, there are several different uses of JavaScript. First of all, I started with an example that I found that I modified from a tutorial on how to do this flyout menu. So there's JavaScript used in the flyout menu. You can click on the links and go to the different pages. There's also JavaScript that is used for the administration page. On this page, I used FancyBox to make a gallery of the administrators at my school so that students could have a little bit more information about the school itself. On the location page, now this is not in the website itself, but I did provide a link to where I modified the JS Fiddle that we worked with to include the location of the school, and then it links to the school's main website that doesn't necessarily have academic support, which is why I created the math website. There's also JavaScript on the contact page, so on my contact page, and then also the overall contact page. The difference is that on my individual contact page, you can only drop down and choose between either myself as an Algebra 1 teacher or myself as a geometry teacher. Let me show that. Versus on the main contact page, you can choose different teachers by the subjects that they teach. If there happens to be someone that's not listed, you would put that, and then it would have to be decided from there. So there is JavaScript in this, as there is form validation in the contact form. I also have an About Me page that has a FancyBox gallery as well. So there are several different uses of JavaScript in this website. Now, a couple of different things here. When I started out, my original structure was to have a home page and then the Algebra 1 material. As I started to work, I realized that the other courses at this school are structured very similarly. So I just reworked my structure to fit in a table versus the original diagram that I had. It's the same structure that I had. And then I took this and I showed how my original information from the Algebra 1 was simply repeated for the other subjects. So in green, it shows the other subjects. There are actually 12 chapters in this textbook, which is why it is longer than in the original. The contact here for myself from my original structure, I also moved that over here. So I have the global contact for any of the teachers and then the personal contact for me. So I kept my personal section of Algebra 1 within the Algebra 1 section, but I also duplicated the structure for the other classes. And then I added this global information about the school itself, as that can be useful to the students since they are the primary audience. Okay, so just going through a few of the features of the website, you can click on the Algebra 1 home. It will take you here. You can get to other homes. You still have the navigation bar off to the side. If you're within the Algebra 1 content, as I've shown, there's a gallery that tells a little bit about myself. There's a class calendar that I included from a Google account where the kids can see assignments and things. Right now it just has the first day of school on it. These buttons do link to the places where they are. And then there's also the textbook. Now, the original intention of the website, the original scope, was to make an interactive textbook and animated glossary. I ended up embedding the PDFs of the textbook as well as the PDF of the glossary. And there were a number of reasons for this. First of all, when I implemented the other JavaScript, I realized that it was much more complicated than I had anticipated to animate the textbook. I started with the idea that there were homework help problems like this on the textbook website, where you can select a problem and then click on hint, gives you a hint, and you click on answer, and it gives you the answer. I wanted it to be a bit more dynamic than that, and I realized that this was something from our assignments that I could create, but I wanted it to be more dynamic. I wanted it to be something where they could actually manipulate and see how their manipulations affected things. So like these examples here, where they can actually manipulate. And I realized that I was not yet prepared for that undertaking. So in the future, I would like to expand and make more dynamic examples, just like the ones I showed, but perhaps even more dynamic, where the students can truly see their interactions with the work. Right now, I think there's still value to the website because the students do not like taking their books home and also often forget their textbooks even if they are willing to take them home. Therefore, having the textbook online in and of itself is useful for the students, but I would like to definitely expand on what the capabilities of the textbook and glossary are within the website. So some of the things that went well, I was proud of how the menu turned out. I spent a lot of time working with this to get it to fly out. I originally started, I was impressed by this website that I happened to find randomly, and I liked the layout, and I wanted to create something with buttons down at the bottom, a big picture up at the top, and a vertical nav bar. I also liked the idea that there was an image here that you could click to go home anytime. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to create it in the same way that it was on here. I liked the muted colors. I really struggled. I wanted to find colors that match somewhat with the textbook, so you can see the geometry is a green, the Algebra 1 is a yellowish orange, the Algebra, sorry, that was Algebra 2, the Algebra 1 is a purple. I wanted to match that somewhat, but also be muted and understated. And so there were some limitations to what I came up with, but I was very proud that I was able to create this vertical navigation. Some things that need additional work. I struggled on some of the pages to create the vertical navigation while also inserting content. So on some of the pages, I had the pages open in new tabs, and then there are a few select directions that you can go from the top. So if you're on the administration page, you can go back to the home, or you can go to contact, but you don't have the full navigation bar on those pages. There were some rationale behind that as well. So for example, on the textbook, a lot of times kids are accessing this on their phones, so I thought that the vertical navigation could be cumbersome. So in the future, I would definitely work with responsive layout. I might consider horizontal navigation, but I would definitely like to use Bootstrap in the future to really work with the dynamics of the website. So definitely some of the things that need additional work. I want it to look more formal. I want it to look more like a professional website. Again, I also had some issues with making the content center and sit right along with the vertical navigation. So that's also something that needs to be worked with. And then I already talked about I would use Bootstrap in the future. Consider a horizontal layout. The other thing is I am aware that some of the pages do show errors for HTML. I do have 3 pages I have shown here that do not show any errors, but I used an iframe on several of the pages, and the iframe itself throws errors. The iframes were the code that was produced when I decided to embed certain things like the PDFs of the chapters from a Google Drive. And unfortunately, those do throw errors, but I did make sure to have 3 pages that did not. But in the future, I would definitely work with and fix that. I would also move it to my DreamHost account. I did set up a DreamHost account. Unfortunately, I really struggled with trying to get the files moved over and ultimately put them on the course website. I do have a custom not found. So this is what happens if you click on a link that is not found. I definitely think there's a lot of potential, and I really enjoyed this project, but there were limitations to my skills, and I would like to improve that for the future so this could be a truly functional website for my students. Thank you very much.